Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another Snap No Tab podcast. And I'm Tony Cecchine with Joe Cardinal. And hey, we just had Thanksgiving for all of our American followers. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Joe, how was yours?
Pretty good. I went to my sister's place. My kids were over there, my nephew. So it was a really good get together. I only had to do mashed potatoes, so I got off easy as far as cooking. How about you, Tony?
I just stayed home, so I didn't have to do. I was here by myself, so that's all good.
Cool.
So,
well, we got a few things to plug before we get to our guest.
Yes,
we got some seminars coming up, right? Saturday, December the 17th at Bender Martial Arts and Fitness, 1:30 p.m. And then that same Sunday, the 18th at DuPage Krav Maga. So kind of continuing our regular monthly cycle.
at 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m. at Krav Maga. So that's earlier. Yes, pointing that out. We've also, Tony, you've got a sale going on. That's correct, right? Still?
Until December 1st. Yeah. So Joe will put, on my downloads, Joe will put, it's like 25% off, I believe, if I remember correctly. I put it up last week. So Joe will put the little blurb in the body of this, but for those of you who are listening, it's Black with a capital B, BLACK 2022. Put that coupon code in and you can get the videos instantly downloaded and save 25%.
Which is a great deal. And if for some reason you can't take advantage of that, at a minimum, we ask you to join our membership site. We got 2 levels. We got just kind of the thank you level at $5 a month. If you enjoy this podcast and are a regular listener, I'd really encourage you to join and, pitch in to show your thanks. And we have an additional, like a $10 level where additional instructional footage that is not put up on YouTube or released for sale is given to you on a monthly basis as well. So 2 very affordable ways to show your thanks and help support the coach. Without further ado, let's get to our guest.
Go ahead and do the introductions, Joe.
Well, he's your good friend. I'm actually just meeting him for the first time, so I'm very excited about this podcast. This is Marcus Charles. Marcus, hello.
Hey, Joe, how you doing? Tony, good to see you again after all these years.
Long time, Marcus. Yeah, you still in Chicago?
I'm still here. Yep, I'm still in Chicago, right by Midway Airport.
South Side, okay.
For sure.
Yeah, I've known Marcus for a long time. Well, how long? Close to 20 years, maybe?
I think we met 2006, I think.
Yeah, so 16, going on 17 years, yeah.
Yeah, close enough, yeah, for sure. Yep, I remember I met you at Triton College.
Oh, yeah, that would have been right around that time. Oh, yeah, for sure, because, it's hard for me to keep track because the years are just flying by, but I remember, I think 2003 is when I started at Triton, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I met you through Augie, and then then we were doing some training at Triton. Then you ended up getting the gym above the Tool
in Bensonville. Well, tell Augie I said hi. How's he doing?
He's kind of MIA right now, so
okay.
I'm trying to get a hold of him for sure. I was trying to get a hold of him before this, but life happens with people. So
with everybody, yeah. It's just astonishing how. But hey, Joe's got a ton of questions for you, Marcus, and kind of give him a little introduction here, Joe. I mean, Marcus can Well, just go for it, Joe. You're the good one with the questions.
Well, I just basically asked, start from the beginning, I'm just getting to know you here. So, did you always live in Chicago? Did you grow up there? When you were involved in sports? And then when did you eventually get involved in martial arts?
Yeah, I grew up here in Chicago. I was born and raised here, and I really wasn't into sports too much growing up. Grammar school, I was kind of a short, pudgy little kid, and then I think I was about 16 or so, or maybe eighth grade, I should say. So right around eighth grade, I remember we were running around the grammar school or junior high, and my gym teacher is like, boy, are you out of shape for a young kid? And back then teachers could talk like that to kids. And I remember talking to my neighbor, going home to him, and he was a World War II veteran, and he was always doing something to stay in shape. And he used to talk about running, and he'd say, he liked to drink, and so he'd be like, I got people over here starting to get a little gassed up. I'm using his words. He goes, I better go run around the neighborhood a little bit to sober up. So, when I started hearing these stories, and then when I got into high school, I played a little football, but really wasn't my thing. But I really started getting into lifting. Wasn't a bodybuilder necessarily, but I like lifting. Lifting weights, being strong, so to speak. And that was the typical, what you hear every day now. You see somebody had a Muscle and Fitness magazine, and they seen an article about Arnold Schwarzenegger talking about Bruce Lee. Everybody seems to use that, and it's very corny now, but I actually am one of those guys that it actually happened to. And that's why I got involved in martial arts. So, and
That's interesting. That's backwards from a lot of, well, I guess it's maybe not for a lot of people. Maybe it is. I always tend to think that a lot of times people get started in martial arts and then look to improve their strength and get involved in weight training, but you found it actually the reverse.
Well, when I started, martial artists really didn't lift weights. It wasn't a thing. Even boxers weren't lifting weights, so to speak, like they were now. It was, I don't know, Tony, you could maybe corroborate on this, when they were saying, lifting weights made you stiff and bulky. You
Muscle bound, yeah.
Yeah, all of that, yeah. And now, obviously, that's all a misnomer, but that's kind of like where the things kind of transitioned. I came in at the tail end of the time frame where gyms were separate from each other. You didn't co-train with somebody else. I remember going to Windy City Boxing when it was still on Ogden Street, and I think it was in 90 or 89, I remember. And that was like a nice change, because you're seeing, Bruce Lee used to talk about boxing. And then later on, when I met Seaver Hartzell, and then when I met Tony, boxing became like a big part of my foundation of the arts, but that wasn't until much later. But
I can remember when Mike Weaver won the heavyweight title, and he was called the Black Hercules because he looked like a bodybuilder, and he was like, well, I mean, even before him, Ken Norton was always pretty muscular. Zora Foley before that, but yeah, I think Ken Norton lifted weights, but I don't think Zora Foley did. Or no, am I thinking of Eddie Macon? Probably one of them. I forget, but for sure, Mike Weaver, he had to lift weights. I mean, the guy was. Yeah. But you just didn't seem to do that. Like none of my boxing coaches. I mean, I don't even really think we talked about it too much. It just wasn't promoted. You know what I mean?
Right. There was just a different, you got strong for, their thing was getting strong by hitting the heavy bag.
Yeah, and calisthenics. Yeah, right. But
it does get you strong, but I think lifting does have a good. It's a good part of. It's a must do nowadays, I think.
Oh, this is the thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the past, but we've grown in every field. We've surpassed the past, so you got to go with the times, man. But Radvan, my wrestling coach, he lifted. He was a weightlifter now, not a not a bodybuilder, and certainly strongman. So I had the strength from him. Okay, that he was my inspiration again for being strong. But yeah, you're right. So many sports didn't lift. I remember baseball players. Now they all look like they're all jacked. Yeah. Back then they weren't. I mean, there used to be a joke back when I was a kid, amongst people, people who's played sports, and it was like, are you an athlete? No, I'm a baseball player. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what they
right.
used to say.
Yeah.
But now these baseball players are phenomenal. They're just in terrific condition, man.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, the past is great. It's good for tradition, but you got to move forward.
Yeah,
And you got to keep, and that's what I think. That's what's nice about a lot of the different coaches I've had over the years, where it's just like you're always looking for something at the end of to be before the pipe, so to speak, where you want to be the forerunner or something. I think that's what Bruce Lee was kind of doing, because he was lifting weights back then. He was, I met his, this guy's the first, and I can't think of his name right now, but he was the first guy in California to have like a supplement shop, a vitamin shop. Not
oh,
like
Vince Gironda.
no, that's not him.
Okay.
According to what I was told, he's a very older gentleman now. But he was Bruce Lee's nutritionist.
Oh,
And I remember he was talking about back then, the stuff that's coming out now was stuff that Bruce Lee was already, doing, different types of supplements. Now, I don't know how the supplements were back then, quality wise. Now it seems like they're just as good as your prescription drugs, but, but nowadays everybody's taking supplements. The big thing now is collagen peptides. They got that vital proteins up there by us in Franklin Park. It's a big thing. I don't know how the quality of that, as far as if that really works or it just goes right through you. But it's a good forefront to help keeping your joints healthy, and so I think preventative injuries is something that, as we get older, I don't think that was ever talked about when I first started training. Back like neck bridges and stuff like that. I mean, that plays havoc on your cervical.
yeah.
And I don't even know if they even do that anymore. But all these a lot of drills that have been kind of pushed aside because they're just not healthy to do, and the longevity of the athlete, I think, is something they're trying to prolong. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, since I had bicep surgery back in last January, and so trying to get myself back into the swing of things. But anyways, we kind of
Well,
went off on a tangent there, Joe. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
yeah, no, I mean, but that's the one thing about wrestling. I'll just, for at least in America, the old timers, like early 1900s, they almost every one of them was the weightlifters.
Yeah.
I mean, when you go back to, I mean, even though it was fake wrestling, Hackenschmidt and Zabisco and on, there was a strong emphasis back then for lifting, and Milo Steinborn, who was called the father of America, squats in America. He became a pro wrestler, and I know Lou lifted weights, Lou Thez, so wrestlers, because they wanted to develop that strength. So yeah, I think the way they lifted was, kind of primitive compared to today, but at least they were lifting,
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Boxers, some other sports, I can't think right now, but I know baseball players really weren't lifting until later. But yeah,
Basketball players, I'm sure weren't.
no,
Um,
but
football players maybe, because they had
well,
that thrust, that initial.
yes, football players, there was a lot of drug abuse, steroids, especially
Right.
performance enhancing drugs in the 70s, cranked out. I have my theories on it, but yeah, I blew out my right arm. I never got it surgically attached, but
Oh,
that
really?
sucks.
Oh,
Yeah, it's shot, but I'm sorry. Well, at least you got the surgery. That's good.
well, I got lucky. It was just, it all had to get sewn. There's no hardware in me, which is
Yeah.
good. It was only partially torn.
Oh
So,
no, mine rolled up both forearm and bicep, but whatever.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? The thing is though about exercise, we have today great reconstructive surgery, injuries that ended careers 20, 30 years ago now just
Right.
you're out maybe 6 to 8 weeks, in some
Yeah.
instances.
Yeah, and it's kind of because the guy, my doctor, Dr. Terry, he's the doctor for the Northwestern football team and the Blackhawks. So I was lucky enough to get with this guy, and when I'm telling him all this stuff, I thought I'd never be able to do anything again. And after 6 months, I'm pretty much back. I mean, I got a crease, in the bicep, which I'm not too happy about, but whatever. I mean, I could do everything. I could lift. I'm hitting a heavy bag. I'm sparring again. I'm doing everything. So there's no, I did all the rehab I was supposed to do, and it was an accident. It wasn't something like it just tore through repetitive trauma. It was an accident at my old job. So, but it is what it is. I think what martial arts has kind of taught me, and I think like a lot of people have a different. It's a weird thing. Back then, martial artists were not in the same ballpark or considered in the same ballpark as, let's say, a boxer or a wrestler. But boxing's martial arts, wrestling's martial arts. It's just that for some reason it became more of the movies. I think you and me talked about this one time, Tony, where the movies kind of turned it into some sort of mystical Star Wars Yoda type of thing, whereas boxing never took that, because boxing is boxing and wrestling is wrestling. They're American sports, and it's about the fighting, it's about the competition, and I think now it's all kind of blended together. Where I think Muay Thai has kind of helped with that because they box and they have a spiritual side to them, and they have like a system, so to speak. There's really no like boxing system, I don't think. I've never heard of one. I've had different boxing coaches. Everybody's got their own way of doing things, but nobody's got like a ranking system or anything like that. Your rank is you go in and you fight. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
It's the way it should be, in my opinion. But
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But yeah, talk about the movies. The thing is that what I can remember as a kid, most boxing movies, well, up maybe until Rocky, but even Rocky,
Yeah.
the boxers were almost always, to my memory, basically losers. All right, like they're bums, or they die in the ring, or it's always like a negative connotation, corruption, so on. Whereas the martial art movies, I didn't see it many. I only saw the Asian ones on Kung Fu Theater on weekends.
Yeah.
But they're the heroes. Okay.
Yeah.
They're heroic. They're one guy beating up the whole 30 people.
Yeah.
I don't remember any heroic boxing movies. I mean, I'm not saying there aren't any, right? Or weren't.
Right.
I can't remember watching any growing up, because all the boxing movies that I watched, it was pretty much tragic. Okay.
Yeah.
From Golden Boy to Champion to, Rocky and all of this. Rocky was a down on your luck kind of guy,
I think
so, yeah.
I think like you said, the turn came with Rocky, with the Rocky series, but even there, up until he came out with Balboa, Rocky 5, he went right back to where he started.
Yeah.
He lost all his money, so it's kind of goes along with what you're saying. Yeah.
It's depressing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember really seeing any wrestling movies. I mean, I don't remember until years later, like Vision Quest, which was a high school thing. But yeah, you had the martial art thing going, those martial art movies. I told the guys on here once before, I never saw a Bruce Lee movie in my life until I was like a senior in high school. Okay. Mm-hmm. When I was able to get a VCR machine, Betamax, and rent a movie. I never saw Bruce. I never got to go to movies. It was rare.
Yeah.
But, so Bruce was, I watched the Kung Fu TV show, with David Carradine. So, and that was, a big thing to watch. But
yeah, those were cool too. But again, there's the guy who just comes in, even though he comes to the States and he's running from the law in China, but at the same time he's saving everybody in the West and all of that, But I mean, there was always that mystique that was like put into being a quote unquote martial artist, where that was never attached to like boxing and wrestling, and now it's all kind of blending together, where it's even boxers and wrestlers that I've talked to, a lot of them are doing, they may not call it spiritual training, but they're doing something. The big thing now is mindfulness through Buddhism, and it's not even anything spiritual. It's just kind of like that NPR stuff that we were talking about years ago. I think you had told me about that, right, Tony? NPR, if I remember right.
Oh, you mean,
Is it
neuro
NLP?
linguistic programming,
Yeah,
NLP?
NRP. And
Okay,
yeah. I'm sorry.
yeah,
But I think now everybody's starting to realize the mind body connection, and I think there's scientific basis to that. I mean, it doesn't mean that you're, turning into a Jedi. It just means that you're starting to realize your brain and your body need to work together, and what you put into your head mentally and what you say that comes out affects you physically. Stress is a big deal, and I think that it's all kind of blending together. And I think the Asian arts have kind of helped bring that to fruition here into the States. As far as physical prowess goes, I've said it before and I'll say it again. As far as fighting hands go, I don't think there's any art that's out there that's better than boxing. Boxers got the best hands out there. So, in my opinion, not to take anything away from everybody else, but the other arts that that do have really good hands, their undercurrent is boxing. So,
well, yeah, and there's so much more to the boxing too with the head movement. Well, we don't want to get
you
into
know
it,
what I
but
mean.
yes,
I'm just
there
saying.
is a mind body connection, because when I see Elizabeth Hurley, I don't mind looking at her body. So there's a mind body connection, man. But you're right. You're right. Some people are like, you can be in tune. I'm in tune with my body, like pretty, like I'm on it, like
Mhm.
when I know I can feel like, if I don't feel, let's say I feel like 90% today, I know that tomorrow I'm going to feel worse, or I know, well, tomorrow I think I'll feel better. I can tell now,
Mhm.
after so many years of, of it, I kind of know where I'm going with my body. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember if I was like that when I was 18 or 21. Probably not, because, you're invincible when you're that age.
Right.
But I don't want to say that I had I was never a martial artist. I mean, in that sense, the Asian martial arts, I never learned, I didn't really, I was shown things, but never in a school. So all of my, if you want to call it spirituality or whatever, came from church, from the Catholic Church. And then later I got into the metaphysics. I got into that on my own, like,
Mhm.
and I don't remember why, but I really got into the metaphysics there for a long time. And I know, like, when I moved to Chicago, I was 23. I was already, I was really already into this power of the mind and
Yeah.
all the metaphysics by that early age. That I know for a fact.
Yeah.
So it probably started when I was 21 with the metaphysics, I think, because of the music.
Right. Right. I just think I think that the separation that was there from the different styles, so to speak, um, are starting to really. Everybody's looking at different arts, or whatever word you want to use, you want to attach to them, and they're finding stuff that they like, or they're finding things that are similar. It's interesting. See, for Francis Fong, the Wing Chun guy from down south, he's one of my coaches, and he actually is he coached boxing years ago. He was a boxing coach, and he implemented a lot of the head movement, but a lot of the streamlined stuff that Wing Chun has. Short distance between 2 points is a straight line, keeping your center close. And he implemented that in his boxing. He's one of the few Wing Chun guys I've heard, like, say, Greg Nelson say who's the real deal. And Greg Nelson trains fighters. He's the real deal himself. And Sifu Fong is one of the guys that he talks about that is the real deal. And he's considered an Asian martial artist. So that's kind of interesting.
Well,
Not that there's anything wrong, by the way,
no,
somebody being traditional and doing it the way it was done back in the day, because, hey, if that floats your boat, that's cool. You know what I mean? Some people like to stay in shape playing tennis. That's cool. I don't like tennis. I'm not going to do it. I don't like playing golf either, but
I don't. But,
but I
well,
mean, if that keeps you in shape, God bless you.
you see, one of the things that Rob Von, I wouldn't say this is spiritual, because he was a Catholic, but he taught me the power of the mind, like the self hypnosis, because he could almost put himself in a trance, like he put himself in a trance with the strength and pain resistance, and he taught me a lot of that, like when he would rip me and everything, how to block out the pain, how to how to divert it, not like, it's not like people think where you're going to be impervious to it, but you're transitioning it away, almost like putting it at a distance. And he helped me with that, but we never put a spiritual
Mhm.
bent on that. Maybe it was, but he would never have said that because, oh my goodness, when
Yeah,
you're a
Catholic.
strict Catholic,
Yeah.
you can't do that. All right.
Right. Right.
But and I was an altar boy and shit. So I mean, that's no, that was a
Yeah.
no. But
Yeah.
it's really how it was, learning to block out the pain, learning how to breathe, which he never said it, but it was pretty much like that's taken from yoga, the breathing, or
Right.
the uh, you know, uh Indo-Chinese, the India breathing deep. So yeah, but never put a label on it. It was just do this, and um,
I
that's
think that
really interesting.
a lot of times when people do put labels on it, then what ends up happening is then it turns into some kind of conflict. Whereas at the end of the day, all the stuff that you're talking about, there's tons of scientific evidence out there, medical research and everything to back it all up. So it really, the people that get offended by the term spirituality, like you mentioned, hardcore Catholics, if you tell them to
Yeah,
meditate, they tell you going to hell and they're throwing holy water on you all day long. And it has nothing to do with any kind of necessarily a spiritual thing. It just has to do with you being healthy, you know.
yeah,
Um, but again, it is what it is. People got to do what they got to do. But yeah, to find it to swing all the way back to what you asked me, Joe. That's how I got started and all that. It was weightlifting and then just moving forward. So
So obviously you mentioned that and Bruce Lee in the article that, that's the name you mentioned, but I can imagine back like in the 80s, there wasn't much of a Jeet Kune Do scene here in the Midwest even. It's really like a California thing. So what did you do?
well, I heard about Bruce Lee and then I went to, I'm not going to mention the styles, but I went to a couple schools in the area. They weren't Jeet Kune Do schools. I just really wasn't impressed with, I was already pretty strong because I was lifting and I was still young. I was in my, um, I think I was 18 or 19, if I don't remember right, when I really started, looking. And they would do some type of somebody grabs you by the back here and then you somehow spin out of it and all this. And the guy just couldn't hold me. So I didn't have any thought process on the arts. I just didn't like it. Never thought about going to a boxing ring at the time or a boxing gym. Never even heard of one. There wasn't one in the area I was at. Wrestling was already kind of just here and gone because I was already starting to get out of high school. But then when I went to a junior college, I met a guy named Dion Ricardo, and at that time that was at my, I guess, pinnacle of lifting. I was wearing you may not remember, I'm sure Tony does though, the T. Michael T-shirts, and I was all tanned up and all that stuff.
yeah.
The pink, hot pink shirts and everything, tanning beds and all that. And he had come up to me and asked me if I lifted. I said, yeah. And I'll never forget how we went to the gym over there at the junior college, and I remember him telling me to take a swing at him. And I really didn't want to, but he had me do it. And at that time, I had pretty big guns, and he actually he did something from Kali where they call it like a quote unquote destruction, where basically just punched my bicep, and my arm went dead for a couple seconds. It was really freaky. And then I was just talking to him about it, and I went to a class, and I seen all the boxing and kickboxing at that time. The Muay Thai was going on, and all that stuff, and that's what sold me on it. And still, lifting was not a thing. He kind of got attached to me a little bit because he wanted more lifting experience, and that's kind of how I got into it. And then that's where I think it was at the American Martial Arts Academy. That was in Berwyn at the time. That was my first introduction to JKD and Kali. I never heard of any of that. Even Bruce Lee's art, never really heard of the art itself anywhere in the area. I mean, Dagerberg was not even a thought in my mind at the time. He was already established, I think, right around then, but it just never came up until right around then. That was around 89, I think, when all that happened. And then since then, I was sold. So, I've had ups and downs like anybody else, but it's a way of life for me now, basically.
Did you ever travel to train? Did you make pilgrimages to the West Coast?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing all these years. I traveled to California, trained with Eric Paulson, and trained with Larry Hartzell. I trained with a lot with all of them, and then with Dan and Asano, worked with him a lot. And then the past number of years, I've been going to Thai camps with Arjun Chaiser, the Thai Boxing Association, and that's been a lot of fun. We're out in Oregon, you're in the Forest Preserve there, and it's like 4 days of 12 hours a day of Muay Thai training. It's really cool. I haven't traveled out of the States though. That hasn't happened yet. So,
Yeah, I got to meet Larry through you, Larry Hartzell.
yeah,
What a great guy he was, man.
yeah. Just that little bit of time, that was something. That was something that he really made an impact on a lot of people. Here in Chicago, he stopped coming for a while, then he came around again, and just that little bit of time that you guys met, he talked about you constantly. I remember. You know.
Yeah, it's a shame that his health was already,
Yeah.
at the tail end, but he wanted me to do that knee bar video. And by the time I was ready to film it, he had already passed. And,
Yeah.
it's, yeah, we were able to talk on an equal level, like about things. Just, you were there, street fighting and whatever, bouncing and just
Yeah.
fighting, just techniques, but
Mhm.
would have been a lot more. We could have been, it
Oh,
would have
yeah.
been nice to go even deeper with that. And, but, every so often people meet other people, they come into your life for a reason. And,
Yeah.
they, he was one of the good ones, just a
Mhm.
great man and had a lot of knowledge. It's a loss to the world.
Yeah, he passed away 2007, and it just feels like yesterday. He was a guy who was big in the lifting,
Yeah.
big time weightlifter. Yeah, he used to say, if when everything else is equal, strength will prevail. That was his phrase. And
I can agree with that,
yeah, I
but
mean,
yeah, he, 15 years already. It's hard to believe it's been that long.
yeah, and he's still got an influence on people. I mean, he still has his, uh, the following, and people still talk about him. I mean, even I go to Minnesota a lot to train with Rick Fay and Greg Nelson, and they talk about him a lot too. Um, so he's just, he trained with Bruce. He was one of Bruce Lee's students. He was the enforcer back then. When somebody
Yeah.
would come in, like like a karate school or something like that would come in, they would have these challenges. Nowadays you'd get sued if you do any of that. But back then you'd have a challenge, and Super Larry was the enforcer. He's the guy that would be called uh, to take care of it. And I remember Guru Dan telling a story about when he was they were still training under Ed Parker, and they had a challenge that came in, and somebody came in, whoever it was, and Larry got in a fight with the guy, and basically Super Larry just threw him through the wall. I mean, the wall just went right through. And then Ed Parker came in, and he was complaining, yelling, who did this, blah, 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 blah. And Sifu Larry raised his hand, told him what happened. He just gave him a thumbs up and a wink and good job. So, but nowadays you get sued for that. There's no way you could do anything like that.
Well, yeah, yeah, and there could be other complications too. I've had my share of incidents in the past.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can't, yeah, you're looking at lawsuits, or you're looking at, somebody pulling a piece out on you, and yeah, it's bullshit, but it's way, but no, I've met like musicians too that were like really great, like that, friendly, willing to talk to you. And we were talking about the world's greatest jazz organist, man, Joey DeFrancesco, who's a couple years younger than me. He just recently died. And we had dinner, and at the time at my fiance's restaurant that she worked at and everything. And I mean, he was like, hey, let's record. You got your drums, you got your accordion. I'm like, whoa, no, we're not going to record. I'm not going to record with you. I don't have even set of drums at the time. They were stored. But that's the type of guy he was, man. He just looked, I mean, here's the guy who's the best in the world at playing jazz organ, and he didn't act like it. He just, just was one of the guys. I loved it.
Yeah, and you bring it. That's kind of like how Sifu Larry was. You just really didn't know. Yeah, I mean, you knew, but you didn't know. There was no boisterous. There's a lot of humbleness to him, and which is cool. And nowadays, a lot of it's a business, so everybody's wearing T-shirts and things like that. You know, what I mean, they're promoting their gym and stuff. So, there's a little bit of commercialization that's happened there. But it still doesn't mean guys aren't, true blue, living the martial art, dream. I know one guy, I won't mention his name, but he's he can be very arrogant, very cocky, but he, at the end of each seminar that he does, he cleans the toilets of the school that was hosting at. And people get mad at him for doing that. He goes, "This keeps me humble."
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, whatever.
It makes him happy. That's cool.
Yeah.
At least he's realizing something. Because I think what's interesting about anything when it comes to competition, whether it's martial arts, wrestling, football, whatever it is, we are always, every day there's a challenge. It's a challenge to get up. It's a challenge to, go to work every day. It's a challenge to get on social media. We always face something every single day. And I think that sports and any kind of martial art, and when I say martial art, I mean everything, whether it's boxing, whatever, teaches you how to deal with the challenges of life and helps you keep going, to keep fighting. Like Arjun Chai says, keep going, sir. You just got to keep moving forward. Or like Stallone's always saying, keep punching, And I think you learn that from the arts. In my opinion, the world would be so peaceful if every single person took martial arts. That's my opinion. But who am I? I'm just being.
Oh, let's try it.
We've been trying that for years, but yeah, I think everybody they learn. I mean, like even with kids, they get in, they start doing a little bit of martial arts, and I remember somebody saying what's good with the kids doing when they get a little sparring in, a little contact, they feel they get a certain respect because they got hit. So they're not as apt to go in and cause an altercation. I don't know how true that is. That kind of makes sense. They maybe get afraid to get hit, but you don't want that necessarily. You, like what you mentioned about turning the pain off or pushing it a little bit further back down.
Yeah.
There's probably two different ways of looking at that one, but yeah, I travel. I still do a lot of traveling. I just came back from. I was in Oregon, California, and Minnesota. I did a trifecta there. And then when I got back, I got COVID. So I made COVID through the worst part of it, and then I got it this year in August. But at least I accomplished everything else. But yeah, Joe, that's pretty much. I travel all the time. Yeah.
Cool. What's it like at the Inosanto Academy? I mean, if you've been there for, it sounds like on and off for decades, like, I guess I have multiple questions about that. Like, what's it like training with Dan Inosanto? And then have you seen the Academy change over the years?
I don't even like say I train with him. I train under him. He's my Sifu, so to speak. You know what I mean? Just out of ultimate. Anything you say about Guru Dan diminishes who he is, because he's just the man in martial arts. But the academy is it's just cool walking in there, because you never know who's going to show up. There's going to be some stunt people walking through there. There's pictures up all over the place of anybody who's done any training there, like him and Burt Reynolds, and there's pictures of him there, just for an example. I remember a number of years ago, the movie Denzel did, and I can't think of the name of it offhand. There was a lot of knife fighting going on in that movie, and I guess he was upstairs. I was at an instructor camp there, and he was upstairs doing stunt work. I just missed him. So those are the cool little things that you run into. But there's a different vibe that's there, because you're right by Venice Beach. It's right down the street from Venice Beach, so you can go there. And then, which is really weird, because I've never done this, and I should have done it, and before all these guys pass away. But I still have not gone to the mecca of bodybuilding, Gold's Gym, which is literally right down the street from the academy. And I should go there, especially since I was so into lifting, and I know all the old school names like Dave Draper, who passed away.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he passed away. Yeah, last year, the year before. Yeah, he was good friends with Sifu Larry, by the way. Yeah, but he was up there in age too. He's late 70s. Frank Zane's still around. He floats around there. Franco Colombo passed away.
Oh, yeah, I knew that.
Yeah. But being in California at the academy, Joe, is really it's just an experience. It's just there's a different vibe there. You know you're at the center of something there. You know, it could just be me, but as far as changing goes, I don't know. Just seems to get it's just cool every time I go in there. It's you know, he always has a different he has the president of the United States up on the wall, right next to General MacArthur. You know, because General MacArthur was credited for saving the Philippines. So that changes a lot. You know, I've seen it go from Obama to President Obama, Trump, and then now Biden. So we'll see what the next one brings.
Always something. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting because like I said, I know of it, but I don't know any specifics because I know just from reading that during the 70s or 80s, like maybe it changed locations or something, but I guess it's been pretty stable now for a while. Or
There was, I guess, a change. I wasn't involved back then when they moved the academy from. I wasn't at the old. I never went to the old academy. That was like in the heyday of with Paulson and those other guys when they were just doing Shudo was coming in the 90s and all of that stuff. I wasn't there then. I didn't actually. That was one of the things I blessed with Sifu Larry because he got me into the instructor program when he passed right before he passed away under Guru Dan's in his instructor program, and that was when he passed away 2007, and then that's when I first started going because I got my wings, so to speak, to go to these instructor camps. That's when I started going. So it's been quite a while, but as far as the academy itself, not too much. I mean, people come and go, you know, but dedication is dedication. So
yeah, I wonder if it's gonna obviously Dan Inosanto's getting up there in age. I wonder who's taking the mantle when he passes away, if that's going to keep going without him, without his personality.
yeah, I have no clue on that one. That's something that nobody has ever talked about, nor probably wants to even think about. You know, it's like anything else. You know, somebody passing away is just that you idolize is kind of rough to think about. You know, the same thing with Arjan Chai Sarasut. I mean, he's getting up there. He's not as old as Guru Dan, but you know, he's up there too, and he's the guy who's credited for bringing Thai boxing to the States. You know, it's kind of interesting with talking like with the old catch wrestling styles and Valley Tudo, and then with you know the advent of UFC and all that. It's kind of interesting how it's kind of crystallized into like is boxing, Muay Thai, BJJ, and wrestling, and it's just interesting how those are the arts, and now everybody is like little by little they're training a little bit on the side some of the more dare I say eclectic or arts just to try to get an edge on something, you know, because everybody's now it seems like it's a war of attrition, you know, when these fighters get in there. You know, they're all in great shape, they all got great skill, and then it just turns into who's got more will, who wants it more, I guess. And I think that's what, like in boxing, who wants it more is going to win the fight, most likely, but there's no spiritual side to that. It's just that raw determination. Whereas maybe some of the Asian arts will put that towards some sort of meditation to strengthen that, etc. And I think that's where that blending of that comes into play. But to swing back to that part, but I to answer your question on that, Joe, I don't know. I don't even want to think about it, to be honest with you. That's going to be a very sad day in the martial art world.
Yeah, he's well, I never met him, but he's arguably the biggest name. I mean, historically in America, I mean, still living. I mean, you know,
Yeah, for martial artists, I would say so. At least, for
martial arts, yeah.
yeah, I would say so. As far as famous and all that, he's the guy. I mean, everybody goes to the academy if you know when they wanna, you know, try to be somebody, or they go to California to try to be somebody at martial arts. It's like you go to Guru Dan's, you know, go to the Inosanto Academy, and then they try something.
And you know, and that's not surprising because like in the acting world, it used to be, and I mean to a degree, it still is. Go to New York if you want to get on the stage, or something like that, Broadway, or go to California if you want to be in the movies. So and it's same with music, you know, depending on what style you want to play is where you want to go. Making it in New York was always the thing.
Yeah.
So you know, there's always been, you know, the place to go. And yeah, I think I talked with Eric about this, Eric Paulson, I think it was him. When I was a kid in Cleveland, reading the magazines, there was all in the 70s, this is always the rivalry, but the New York martial artists and the California guys. Okay. And that was like, yeah, the California guys maybe winning tournaments, but New York guys will kick their ass in a street fight. That was the thing that the rivalry, they would always talk like that, throw down challenges. And, you know, it was kind of interesting. And I have a very complicated relationship, I guess, with martial arts in general, because, and I'm not the only one, because growing up boxing and wrestling, we were specifically told, you aren't martial artists. Okay. This isn't martial arts my whole life. And then, you know, we've talked about this before, like you just mentioned, how it's an integral part of MMA now, mixed martial arts, and part of the mixture is boxing, wrestling, what have you. Yeah. And so it was always, you know, we were never part of that culture. We were never part of the, we were never accepted. And you know, even in my subdivision of what I do, my style of catch wrestling, you know, I had to, you know, verbally get into it with the BJJ crowd, because they didn't understand that there's more submissions than just Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I've always been on the outside, never like welcomed with open arms. And, you know, I could tell you from the guys that I've trained, and I'm only speaking for the guys that I've trained, they still haven't absorbed boxing fully or wrestling. They want to take bits and pieces, as opposed to really getting a deeper appreciation for it, which I think is sad, because there's so many subtleties that you absolutely need to know. You just do, to make you far more well-rounded or more effective. But since they don't dig deep enough, they're not aware of these subtleties. That's just the people with me.
You know, and you bring up a good point. And I think that could be that kind of is a downside, where a lot of people miss the point of checking other quote unquote systems out, because you're not giving yourself enough time to appreciate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like you're saying, the subtleties, there's those certain little things that are needed. Just even when you're throwing a cross, are you really twisting enough? Are you really pressing, you know, using the ground, pressing all the way through your hips, through your shoulders? Are you twisting? You know, you twist just this much more, you're going to connect with the guy. Those are the little things that a lot of people just don't see. They see the cross, they go to a seminar, they see a hook, they see a jab, blah, blah, whatever, just throwing those techniques out there. And I think that that's the downside to some of the Asian arts that people have seen, because those nuances aren't being delved into enough here in the States. You know, if you get like in Thai boxing, that is an Asian art, but it's a very effective art. And they have, Arjan Chai Sarasut is extremely meticulous on form. You never do it right. It's like you could always be better, you know, just your form, you know, meaning throwing the technique, so to speak, you know, and it's a very effective art, you know. And I think that, but people get into it for some reason. It's really one of the big, probably arguably the biggest Asian, well, Taekwondo is big too, though. I shouldn't say that, but Thai boxing and Taekwondo has been a very integral part in stand-up, you know, in MMA, because Taekwondo, a lot of those guys are doing those different kicks now. But I went off on a tangent for a second. I'm sorry.
No, but
go ahead.
I agree. And, you know, I think, this is going to sound weird, but based on my life, I think the people nowadays are at a bigger disadvantage. And I'll tell you why. Give me a second to explain, because I first started out in boxing. Well, I never heard of catch wrestling or really any martial art at all. I never heard of Taekwondo. I did not know they existed. All I knew about was boxing for years. And then all of a sudden I meet Radvan with the wrestling. All I knew about wrestling was it was fake on TV. And so I did not have these distractions. Okay. Like to me, like I said, only boxing existed. And then once the wrestling came in, now I learned enough boxing. Now I'm into the wrestling. This is awesome. Now you have all these different styles and things available. You can't focus on one thing, you know, everybody's there. It's just overload, information overload, too much. So I was really, I was lucky. I really mean it. I feel I was very lucky that I didn't have this smorgasbord to pick from, because I never would have excelled. I'd have probably been all right, but I never would have really gotten like as high as I I never would have reached my potential if I just believe that. And that's why I think so many, like, even when sometimes when I teach, when it's an open session, like, okay, what do you want to learn? So they want to cover a little bit of this, then a little bit of that. It's disjointed. Okay. Show me some boxing, show me some wrestling. This isn't the way to do this. Okay. If you want to learn boxing, you don't want to learn a little bit of it. You want to learn a lot. Same with wrestling. You don't want to learn a little.
Yeah.
You want to learn a lot. So that's my take on it.
I think also too, it also depends on the intent of what you're doing it for. You know what I mean? If you're going into like, to me, at the end of the day, when I started doing all this, it was all about fighting.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about ram. I'm talking about fighting in the street, bouncing, and all the different things that we had discussions about this for years.
That's all I care about.
Yeah. But then you do have, and that's one of the things I've always liked about being under Rick, is because he believes the art is for everybody. The art, and that's probably the key word there. The art is for everybody. There's people that are in wheelchairs that still swing around sticks and they're hitting the bag and all, they're being active. So there's a beauty in the art of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is some people will think that they're really good and they get, the air lats, as we used to say in the gym, and they end up getting schooled because they really don't know. They know the technique and they could do it really good. They're really beautiful the way they move everything, but they don't know how to apply it.
Yeah.
And I've heard this say before, sparring is a privilege. It's not a right when you train. It's kind of an interesting point there, because you could do all kinds, you could throw your jab and cross all day long, but if you don't get into the ring and get the gloves on, are you really doing boxing, or are you really learning how to fight? You're not, and I think that's, it goes by again, what you're saying is like, for you, you're about the fighting. So it's like, if you keep just grabbing bits and pieces of stuff, you're missing the point, and you're not getting good at anything.
Right. That's exactly how I mean,
exactly. I agree with that part. For sure. I mean, I think that, when they talk about different styles being better than other styles and stuff like that, I think that everybody forgets the undercurrent there. There's guys I know, and I've mentioned it about you, Tony. I know it's a podcast about me, but I've mentioned about you. If people had asked me if there was somebody that I'd wanted to back me up in a dark alley, you're the guy I always bring up. Okay? You're the guy. You're not a Shudo champion. You're not you don't have belts hanging up all over the place, but you're the guy, because there's an undercurrent. Now, I'm not saying that other instructors I have wouldn't be able to back me up. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is there's an undercurrent of that some professional athletes don't have. And I think there's intent. There's a thing that the one Paul Vunik used to call killer instinct. I don't know if it's a good term nowadays, but if you know what I mean, there's that instinct that you have. You're like an alley cat. If you're going to go, you go. You're not worrying about what happens later on. You're not worried about legal ramifications. If this guy makes you fight, you're fighting, and it's all out. Some people don't have that instinct to do that, because they're confined in certain rules of the ring and stuff. So I think that if you don't have that, if you're just somebody who wants to be a casual martial artist and you just want to go in and on the weekend you want to just swing sticks around and just move and all that stuff every once in a while, hit the heavy bag, focus mitts, blah, blah, blah. That's cool. I don't have an issue with that. That's your right to do that. And you're still promoting the art, but that doesn't mean you're a fighter. That doesn't mean you could fight. It just means you know the technique. And maybe you could even be a good teacher, because you got people that are teachers, you got people that are fighters, and then you got the combination of both, you know. So I think what underscores a lot of this stuff is the personality of the person and the intention. You know, there's intent, there's rage involved. Maybe that's a better word for killer instinct. There's all kinds of things that are involved when you get into a fight. You know, how are you feeling at that time? Are you feeling, you can't be in the best shape of your life all the time, you know? You can't be, you know, so you can't, the guy who won a boxing match yesterday and won the championship, that doesn't mean he's going to win it again the next time around if he ran into that guy and he's having an off day, you know? So I think that the street fighting aspect that some of these arts don't give, for whatever reasons, um, they sometimes give a false sense of security to people, and I think that's a disservice to the art and to people as a whole, you know. But at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody just saying, "Hey, man, I just want to come in, want to get a little workout in, you know, move around. It's pretty cool. You do this, you do that. Yeah, I know 20 different ways to throw a jab. Okay, that's cool. But then if you go into the ring and you put the gear on, you get knocked out first shot. It's kind of like, well,
Yeah.
okay, you know, okay, you know, so you know 20 different ways to throw a jab. That's great. If that's all you want to do, that's cool. But remember, that's not going to help you in this situation. You're not at this level, you're over here. So I just think everybody's at that, you know, they have a right to choose what they want to do. They got to stay in their lane, to coin a phrase, you know.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, and then there's just certain times that, you know, as an instructor, you know, if you're a history teacher, you're not going to be teaching math, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, it's my duty, like what you, like you just said, I teach people to fight,
Mhm.
self-defense and be the toughest in the world. That's my goal. That's my thing. So
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time teaching you stuff that is not going to get you to that point. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and because there's plenty of other wonderful martial art or just instructors out there that will do that. That can they'll show you that. Um, yeah, I'm more hardcore. You know that because
Yeah. Yeah.
you've trained with me, so you know
Yeah.
I'm mean and
Mhm.
let's go. Nothing's ever good enough for me.
Right.
But then you get guys like, you know, like Joe's older now when he's training, and I don't kill him. I don't make him drop, but I still, he knows I'm always correcting him. Nope, you didn't do that good enough. Nope, this, you know, blah blah blah. That's just my way, man. I like you. I don't want to give somebody a false sense of security.
Mhm. Yeah,
You
and
know,
I think that you know, as long as that's known ahead of time, and then you know the intention of somebody when they're coming to you and they want to learn something. You know, somebody, you know, the old adage of back in the day, because I don't know if Bruce Lee's a thing really anymore. A lot of these kids don't even know who he is or really even care. But you know, they seen Enter the Dragon. I used to hear that all the time. They want to try something, you know, and so you know they jump in. Now it's UFC. You know, people see the UFC. It's on there's a fight going on every single day somewhere on cable, and
yeah,
you know they look at it and they want to try it out. And some people they try it out and they do okay. Some people they don't want to do it. They'd rather go and you know just play tennis or something. You know, and that's cool too. Nothing wrong with it. I just think that at the end of the day, the people need to be respectful and again to coin the phrase stay in their lane, you know, and
there you go.
not have the attitude. I think one of the biggest things I've noticed in all these years is that people tend to they're always trying to find something wrong with somebody else. You know, worry about yourself. You know, there's enough in for me that I know myself to fix. I don't have time to worry about anybody else. You know what I'm saying? And if you could be myself, I think for me to be as a teacher and instructor, whatever, my best example is to keep pushing, is to be the best I can be. And then if I can do that, then I'm the example to share that with somebody who wants to learn. Um, you know, I try not to when somebody, what do you think of this or what do you think of that? Always great. And maybe even in the back of my mind, I'm not thinking, they got this attitude, they got this, but I don't say that because what purpose is that? You know, somebody else may get along with the person. You know, I may not, or they may not get along with me, but they'll get along with somebody else. You know, so why waste the energy? You know, hurling insults back and forth and like the internet trolls, which I know you've had your share of those, Tony. Remember those
Uh,
days? It's like a big waste of time. I mean, I don't even, when I post something on Facebook or whatever, if there is even one hint of a negative comment, I don't say anything. I just delete it. I just block the person and I'm done.
I don't go on Facebook. I don't even have it. Joe takes care of that. I
Yeah,
haven't been
yeah.
online like that in 20 years, maybe 15
Yeah.
years, easy. But no, the thing with me with you gotta know, and this is almost like what's his name, Clint Eastwood, but you do have to know your limitations too. So that's why I
Mhm.
know what I'm capable of doing, or at least I think, I'm pretty sure I know what I can do. And there are just certain things that I'm not going to enter into that. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
not going to fight that way because that's not that's not the way, that's not my style. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let you lure me into your style either, because I see
Yeah.
that happening a lot. I see people getting taken out of their game. Yeah, that can never happen. You've got to be in control. You got to dominate. But
Mhm.
I know Joe's sitting there because he's got a lot of questions. So Joe, go at it, man.
Go ahead,
So
Joe.
let's talk about, like, where do you teach? Do you have a school?
Yeah, I'm teaching out of in Bloomingdale right now out of Compredo BJJ. I'm renting a spot out by him right now.
What's the name?
Compredo BJJ. It's in
Oh,
Bloomingdale, Stratford Square Mall.
oh, well, I know where that's at, but I mean, I know where Stratford Square Mall is.
Yeah, yeah. So he's got a school there, and I met him when I was at a gym called Flow. I was boxing there with my boxing coach Asher, and Compredo was the jiu-jitsu guy there. They were partners. They split, and Compredo went and opened up his own place, so I ended up going there to teach. So I've been there for a while. He coached with Eric Paulson and Greg Nelson, Brock Lesnar, when he was in the UFC. Back, that's how they all
Oh,
kind of
wow.
met. Everybody kind of connected through that. So that's where I'm at now.
Are you teaching most weeknights, or what's your schedule?
I'm teaching Tuesdays and Thursdays now in the evenings. I'm starting to push a little bit more. There's a lot of Zoom stuff that happened over, during COVID, and I think it's a nice supplemental way to work with people. But right now, as far as live interaction goes, it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and then Saturdays.
When is it like a mix of like striking arts and Kali? What else do you work in? You mentioned Eric Paulson. Do you get into some of the combat submission
Oh
wrestling?
yeah. I'm a coach under Eric, so I've been working a lot with that actually lately with a couple of the guys that really are interested in that part of the art itself. But we start out with the ground, and then we go into the striking, and then we may finish off with a little bit of weapon work, depending on. Right now, things are a little loose because COVID really hit us hard. I mean, we had 35 students at one point, and then little by little, it just kind of faded away. So now we're like a boys' club again, and we're trying to rebuild. But that's
It's a
pretty
shame.
much. Yeah, it is. It is. It happens. I mean, it is what it is. Can't change it. So we just got to. I mean, I can't get it back. You can't go back in time and get rid of COVID. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing right now. Muay Thai and ground is our biggest thing right now that we're focusing on.
It sounds like a really good thing for people to get a well-rounded experience. So that
Well, I do think that one of the things I think that's one of my strengths is at least I could expose people to stuff. I'm not somebody that can get somebody. I don't focus on this. I guess if I wanted to, I could, but I'm not somebody that's gonna coach somebody to go into the UFC or to go into a Thai fight or a boxing match. It's just not something that I've ever focused on, and it's not necessarily something I necessarily want to do. But I could at least expose you to the art and how cool it is and what it is and what it entails. I'll give you a good workout. You should be able to protect yourself at the very least. And then if you're really interested in getting involved in something more hardcore, well, I know people I could just guide you to, a Muay Thai coach or a boxing coach in the area.
great. Well, I mean, you answered a lot of my questions, and I think I have a really good feel for what you do, and I'm really happy to have met you. I think we actually have a friend in common, Ron Almaria. Does he train with?
Ron's one of my students. Yeah.
Yeah,
He is. Yeah.
yeah. He's been out to train with Tony, and I've
Oh, yeah.
been friends. He's a really good guy. So hopefully
Yeah,
he's listening.
yeah, he's the guy who gave me the shirt, by the way.
Okay,
When
that's
I was
how.
training with you, Tony, you never had shirts. You were so hardcore. You didn't even have t-shirts back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, I haven't seen Ron since like 4 years now, maybe.
Yeah, his parents aren't doing too well. His dad just had surgery, had some lung part of his lung removed.
Oh, I'm
So,
sorry to hear that.
yeah. So, and then everything else that goes on, life gets involved and everything else. But he's still training and doing his thing, yeah, and doing
Well,
his
tell him
job.
hello.
Oh, for sure, definitely, for sure.
But COVID itself, not even the disease, it's just when everything shut down, people started to realize, hey, I don't need this or that or this or that. And I know this from people in other walks of life, not necessarily even martial arts, just even exercising. They found other ways and they're like, wow, okay, there's so much more that I can do in life. And that affected a lot of people. Some of them just never went back to their previous hobbies,
Hmm.
whatever they were, like shooting pool or, because all of that was shut down, everything.
Yeah,
So, so it's not, you can't even take it personal. But with
no,
me, I had the double whammy, not just COVID, but I was taking care of my mom for, seven, like 8 years really, but we really
hmm,
got bad the last 6 to 7 years. And then of course, when Kevin, my partner, got killed and I lost the gym, that ended my business. I mean,
yeah,
that was it.
yeah,
I never was able to rebound because I couldn't teach, because I couldn't leave the house with my mom.
yeah.
So, and now it's hopeless. I'll never, it's hopeless. So, I know that it's all over. We're going to make an announcement about that coming up beginning of the year, but it's pretty much dead. So unfortunately, but it's not my fault. So don't you take it personal when you say you're down to a boys club. I hope you can get it built back up. Just
Mhm.
don't take it personal, because people just tend to drift.
Yeah, and it just kind of, and who knows, a lot of it has to do with like when you're talking about your mom, because like with me, when right before COVID hit, the month before, my mom passed away.
Yeah.
She had, and nobody even knew. She didn't even know. She had stage 4 cancer.
Oh
She was going
man, sorry.
every single month for pap smears and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, boom. It's like, where does this come from? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then she went for the chemo, and then the next day, then she got sick. They had I forgot the word, a metastasized, whatever, got an infection, and boom, she was gone. And then COVID hit a month later. So there's a lot of things. So I think a lot of stuff like what you're talking about, Tony. You're going through with having to take care of your mom and stuff like that. I think our focus is, and again, for lack of a better word, our energy kind of gets different. You know what I mean? And we
Well,
don't have that same magnetism necessarily to keep the students or to attract them either. I don't know. It's just a guess.
I don't know. I mean, it's with mine's is always is more complicated, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, you have to step up with the responsibilities.
Right, right, for sure.
I kept the show going even during all of it as best I could, but
Hmm.
some of it falls on the students. Hey, all right, I want to train no matter what. Well, that's great. Then come train. But when
Hmm.
when they walk away, there's nothing, you. Can't do anything. You can't kidnap them.
No, right, right, right. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But
Yeah, and again, usually the first thing when things go bad, they cut out the gym.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Financially, they cut out the gym, then comes cable, and then comes, blah 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 blah. That's the first thing, and they don't look at it, which I find kind of interesting because if you're so worried about your health and stresses and things like that, you need to be in a gym. You need to release all that. You know, the only thing like with COVID though, what kind of helped me, I noticed about there's different workouts all of a sudden started coming along. I was
Mm.
never into, um, and I don't think you were either, like the TRX stuff. You
Yeah,
know,
no, it's not for
yeah,
me.
yeah. But I started doing that during COVID, and then through my rehab, That's all I did was
Good.
TRX stuff. And it helps the tendons, I guess, and all that other stuff. But it still doesn't help me lift. 405. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, no, I
you know,
mean, everybody's got their own thing.
yeah,
There's enough out there for everybody, and yeah. I mean, this world's a big place. There's 8 billion people now. We just crossed the threshold last week,
uh,
so there's plenty to go around. So that's another reason why I don't know how people can get blacklisted or like, oh, don't go to this guy. There's plenty to go around. But no, I mean, it's just, I really do wish you the best. Joe, you got anything to add here? Or-
No, it's good to finally get to meet you and touch bases. You know, you've been a good supporter. I've seen you online, and it's appreciated all your supporting of us and
Yeah.
spreading the word. You know, so happy to hopefully we can give your school some publicity.
Yeah,
you
put
know,
all this information on the thing,
Yeah, that'd be
on the
great.
YouTube thing. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to hook up sometime after the holidays.
I was just gonna say that. Where are you at now? Where are you living at?
Way up in McHenry County, man. I'm right near the Wisconsin border. It's
Oh, that's cool. I go
no,
up there
no,
quite a bit.
no. I'm a city guy.
What?
No, I'm
Well,
a
I'm
city
just-
guy. No, it's not cool. You
Oh,
know.
okay. I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I mean, I go up there periodically, so I mean, I'd come visit you, or if you want to come out.
Oh
here,
yeah.
you can too.
Well, if you're up this way, let me know. You know, shit.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I haven't seen you. I would get a hold of Augie or whatever, but I definitely want to see it. And then I got Eric coming out, I think, in March. So if you want to meet him face to face, that'd be cool too. If you want, you know.
Yeah, keep me in the loop, because I never know what's going to happen in my life. So yeah, for
Right,
sure.
right.
I'd like to come down and at least
Mhm.
meet him or meet. You know, let's see you first. You know.
Well, yeah, for sure. Anytime. Yeah. We could, yeah, whenever. Just let me know. I got Joe's, I don't know if you got my number. Joe's got it for sure. I think he can give it to you. And then we could at least communicate, you know, through texting
All right.
and phone calls and stuff, and just shoot the bull like we used to, you know. I miss talking to you.
Yeah, those were the days, man. Those were good times. You know. Well, I've tried to keep
Yep.
keep in shape as best I can, keep my weight down. I'm never going to be one of these. Well, I shouldn't say never, but I
Yeah.
don't want to be one of these guys that they let themselves go.
Mhm.
You know, I can't do that. You know, Rodvan was doing strongman shows when he was 70. Thez and I worked out. Lou Thez and I worked out lifting weights less than a year before he passed away. These are, this is a lifestyle with me, okay? And
Yeah.
and it was with him. For so many martial artists that I've met or known, like Bill Wallace is another one. He's in phenomenal condition, and he'll always be that way, you
Yeah.
know. It's a lifestyle. This is all we know,
Mhm.
and so that's, I may not be, super strong like I used to, but I don't get to the gym. I'm in an area, there are no gyms. I got to go to Planet Fitness, which forget about it. You can't get you just can't get the workout in that I'm used to,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but I don't even care about that. I just want to keep my speed going and, all of that. But so everybody should be able to do that. As long as you're physically capable, but we'll talk more about that when I see you again.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
But anyway, everybody, before we sign off, just want to thank Marcus again for being here. Marcus Charles, JKD expert. And check out his school for real. And we'll put all the information down there. And
Great.
yeah, I think that's about it. Next week, we don't know who our guest may be. Even if we don't have one, we're going to have a good discussion, I think, next week. I got a topic in mind. But
Cool.
Joe, you got any closing thoughts?
No, just make your way out to the seminar. Don't forget the 17th and 18th is coming up, and don't miss the
DVD or the video sale thing?
Yeah, so all that'll be in the links below in YouTube and up on Tony's social media. So thanks for your support, and thanks for
Yeah,
your time.
everybody. And thank you again, Marcus, and we'll see everybody soon.
Yeah.
All right.
for sure.
Bye-bye,
Tony,
everybody.
Tony, for sure. We got to
What?
connect. Okay. We got to get together.
Yeah, no, done deal. Just
Cool.
we'll figure this out.
Great. Awesome. All right. See you later then. Thanks.
Okay,
Joe.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.